episode number 121 of the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. Welcome to the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. I'm Michelle, a fertility acupuncturist here to provide you with resources on how to create a wholesome approach to your fertility journey. Today I want to talk about a topic that I find to be so important, not only on the fertility journey, but in life in general. It's really important, actually, if you do get pregnant and you eventually get your goal. It's important for raising kids, it's important for relationships, it's important for finding jobs, and it's especially important while navigating the fertility journey. And that is intuition. Intuition is what I consider to be a sense. It's something that we are born with, just like we have all of our senses. It's something that we have that can keep us safe. It's happened that many times people knew or had gut feelings about being in certain situations that were not safe, and sometimes ignored it and then regretted it. And hopefully it was just a smaller issue, but many times, many times, I've heard so many people tell me stories about how they knew something was off or knew that they should have made a decision and didn't listen to that intuition. And I'm going to talk about what would cause us to not listen to our intuition, what the things that kind of throw us off, and 3 different aspects of how to connect with our intuition. So why is intuition so important? Well, I personally believe that it's very hard to test and measure. It's something that science doesn't really have down because it is something that can be very abstract. It is something that also is not linear. It's not always the same in every single circumstance, because in every single circumstance, there's a unique amount of needs for unique individuals. So it's not something that's easy to measure. And at the same time, just because you can't measure it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. So it really deserves to have attention. It deserves to have its own space. And I think it's just a really important gift that we are given as humans, really, to keep us safe and also to be aligned in our life. So as you know, I look at fertility in general and all of life with a spiritual angle. That's just how my perception is. So everybody perceives differently. Some people are visual, some people are audio, some people are more sensory, that we know. And then some people rely a lot on intuition too. And intuition is, again, it's another sense. But with intuition, some people will get it through thoughts. Sometimes they'll get it through visions. Sometimes they'll just feel it in their body. And it is something that basically is there to protect you, especially in the fertility journey. So in the fertility journey, why is it so important to have a connection with your intuition? Well, number one, going to many different doctors, you're getting so many different pieces of information, and sometimes the information could be wrong. And even though we rely and we trust a lot of the people outside of us or the people that are really experts in the field, even experts that understand everything on an intellectual level may not know if it really fits for you in particular. So a lot of times when people are learning things on an intellectual level, they understand it as an average. That's why in schools, they teach a certain way, and that way can work for, 70% of the kids, but some kids do better with different types of teaching. So we can't really all be fit into one box. So just because they study the body, just because they study reproductive medicine, doesn't mean that they know everything. And then based on labs, a lot of times I find with science in general that people can come up, or scientists can come up with something, or doctors can come up with a certain medicine that works, and then years later something comes out that disproves that. And it seems to be the case for a lot of things. That's why even studies you really need to take with a grain of salt, because some studies do really well and they show like one aspect, and another study shows that it doesn't work at all. So it's definitely an interesting thing. So my personal belief is that our intuition is there to protect us and to guide us. And if you are in a situation where you're speaking to a doctor and the doctor is telling you something that doesn't really resonate with you and doesn't feel right, or they're giving you this prognosis that basically it's a dead end. You're not going to get anywhere on your own. You're not going to get anywhere naturally if you're trying to get pregnant naturally, or you can't get pregnant with your own eggs. You're going to have donor eggs. Now, I've done this long enough where I've spoken to, whether it's my guests on this podcast or people that I see at my office, and I hear this story over and over and over again. And I also have seen women being told that they can't do it on their own, doing it on their own, and totally disproving that completely. And so one of the things that I find is that people who have decided to do it on their own had made a decision that took a lot of courage, because they're told that they can't do it on their own from an authority figure or an expert. And they chose to listen to their gut. Now, was it easy? No, not at all. But they felt something pull within them, and they had to make that choice. And that choice was to listen to their intuition. Now, majority of us will choose a lot of times not to. And I'm not saying for all times. A lot of times we will listen to our intuition, but many times our mind starts to take over. And our mind will start to convince us not to listen to our intuition. And there are a couple of reasons why we don't listen to our intuition. One is because of fear. We are afraid because we're not given this absolute certainty that we're going to make the right decision. And especially if we're going against the advice of an expert. And I'm not saying or advocating to go against the advice of an expert. What I am advocating is, if you don't feel right with an expert, go to another expert or look into other options. And that's really, it'll stop us in our tracks because of convenience. We don't want to spend more money, or we don't want to spend more time, and we just want to get it done. So it's impatience, convenience, fear. Those things are going to take us out of alignment with our intuition, because sometimes listening to your intuition or being guided to do something is less convenient. And sometimes it takes a lot of courage, and it's more scary to do something that your intuition's telling you to do. Sometimes it takes us out of our comfort level or our comfort place. So a lot of times that's what gets us off. And another thing is doubt. When we doubt ourselves, and we've been used to or conditioned to doubt ourselves, maybe we've been told, trust the experts. We don't really know. I don't really know. But the truth is, it is your body, and nobody can feel what's going on inside your body like you can. And that's the truth. That doesn't mean that you're an expert. That does not mean that you should self-diagnose, but it does mean that it is important for you to honor and listen to that feeling that you have within yourself. And that's really connecting with your power, your personal power. And you're really partnering up with the people in your team, on your fertility team, whether it's the natural practitioners coupled with Western medicine, conventional practitioners and medical doctors. So you're really partnering up with them. And it's not about them just telling you what to do. It's about you also feeling what's right. And I really want to stress this because it's really, really important. And so some of the things that happen with intuition, and how do we connect with that intuition? And that's always a good question. Number one, I just want to say that we all have this intuition. We all have this intuition. There's countless of stories of people just feeling something, and it usually comes out in severe circumstances. And why does that happen? Because that's when it's non-negotiable. But most of the time, we kind of learn to shut it out. For the reasons that I just mentioned before. We learn to shut it off because it's not convenient. That's the truth. And we love convenience, don't we? But I'll tell you the truth. The truth is that it's actually more convenient than inconvenient in the long term. And it's more important to do that because once you start to get through the inconvenience and get out of your comfort zone, which usually happens in the beginning, eventually it's going to align you so well that things will start to feel effortless and you're going to feel guided. And that's actually, not only is it more convenient, but it's more safe. You're going to start to feel more safe, like you're making the right decisions and that you're whole with it. Now, the right decision, there is no right or wrong, but there's something that's right for you and for you to really feel connected with it. Now, does that mean that you're going to come up with it on your own? Not at all. It's a part of you that's going to feel right with the practitioner that you choose. And that is important too, just knowing that you're in alignment and you're working with what is right for you. Another thing is sometimes we get too much information. So sometimes it can be wrong information. Sometimes it's too abundant of information. So we get information about supplements. And people hear about supplements, they take all the supplements, but not all the supplements are right for everybody. So sometimes it's overwhelming. And it's important to know when is a good time to go and speak to somebody and get guided. And a lot of times, personally, I found that if I just open up and say, I want to be guided to finding the right, and I honestly, the right painter for my house, even things like that. I use it for everything in my life. And what do you know? As soon as I bring out that intention, I do get guided or I get a call. And that's just how it works. It's kind of like this invisible web of energy that permeates our life. And it's there. It's energy. And the more you do it, the more it appears. The more you listen to your intuition, the louder it gets, because it's very silent at first. It's very subtle because we have free will. We get to decide. We don't get told exactly what to do, but we are guided when we choose to get guided. And it's there. So the 3 things that I want to talk about is number 1, awareness. One of the best ways to start your intuition is awareness. And starting to pay attention to how you feel, just paying attention to what happens in your mind, like what causes you to have fear. And if you're using fear or choosing fear to guide your answer. So fear that you're not going to have something unless you use this one option. It's only one option. You have to make that decision. If you're making a decision based on desperation or fear, is it coming from the right place? Just paying attention to that and becoming aware if things feel right to you or how you perceive things. Do you perceive them physically? What kind of feelings do you have in your body? Because the body is really what processes emotions. So what is your body telling you? Where do you feel it? So if you're coming into the doctor's office and you come out really drained, maybe go to another doctor. And I've spoken to so many of my patients who have done that. And they've gone to a doctor and come back to me and they've been so upset and just really, I could see it in their whole body language that they really felt defeated. And then they'd have another alternative consultation with somebody else and they felt like it was like you watered a plant, totally alive, totally good. And I even had one recently come to me and tell me after her 3rd consultation that this 3rd doctor was so amazing, listened to her, really made her feel that she was aligned with her journey and that she was really there to help her. And she really connected and resonated with her. So much so that she said it brought her to tears, that she came home and cried from gratitude of feeling that she connected so much. Now, if you want to talk about how your body's responding, I mean, that's a perfect way to show just how you feel it in every part of your body and you're like viscerally when you're truly aligned and truly connected. And especially when you're coming from a place of not feeling connected. So awareness is really important. Writing things down. You can journal about what you pay attention to and what you see and what you notice. And that leads me to number 2, which is allowing and listening. So first you pay attention, you realize where you're at and what your state is, and you're just conscious of it. And second, you start to allow the information in. So which is why I love meditation. Why is meditation so amazing? Well, we talk about prayer being speaking and meditation is listening. So a lot of times we speak and ask and ask and ask, but we don't really give ourselves much of a chance to get quiet. We're not in a state of receptivity often. We're always in this modern state of doing. And even if we were in quarantine and we're at home, we have a little more time, we still are on our phones. We're constantly bombarded. We're watching Netflix, whatever it is. We're constantly being distracted because modern day times has a lot of distractions. It's not what it used to be. If you look at history, we had time. People used to have time to sit down, prepare meals, and really be with them because they didn't have distractions. They didn't have phones. They didn't have electronics. They had time to really connect with nature and farm and connect and eat and spend time together and read books. And now we're constantly bombarded with noise, with ideas, with information. I mean, information is just, sometimes my brain explodes because I also use a lot of information for learning fertility and I'm constantly learning, but sometimes it's too much information, TMI, too much information. So it's important to really get to a state of receptivity and listening. Meditation can help you with that. And I know that some people feel resistant to meditating because they feel like meditating gets them to feel edgy. Well, I would say if you can sit there with it and allow yourself to really be present and be okay with that edginess and just breathe through it, you will actually get past it. It will get easier. So I really encourage you to try. But if it's absolutely something that is too much for you and you can't do it, then walk. Take a walk outside. Daily walks for 5-10 minutes, or get into a place where you can actually sit in silence and you can observe and you can be in a state of listening. And listening is not just with your ears, listening is with your eyes. It's also senses. You could just be in a state of receptivity. What's around me? Just listen to the moment. Listen to your breath. Pay attention to your breath. Feel your breath. Feel the now moment. And whatever is happening right now, be in a state of receptivity. And that will allow the information or your intuition to speak to you. You're giving it a space to speak to you. Now, number 3, once you are giving yourself that time, and give it to yourself every single day, number 3 is trusting. So yes, you can start to become aware and perceptive, right? And then you can allow the information to come in. That's great. But if you don't trust it, because a lot of times we do have our intuition speaking to us, but we don't trust it. When we trust it, that's when we listen to it. And the more we listen to it, the more it's going to speak to us. And the more it speaks to us, we start to realize the difference between our thoughts and our intuition. And there is a difference, and it's very, very specific. But it's hard to differentiate when you're not used to listening to it. So what that can do is it can help you make the right food choices. It can help you with relationships. It can help you in your lifestyle choices, everything that you do, what kind of exercise is good for you, every single thing. And I find that one of the most stressful aspects of life sometimes is decision making. Really, decision making can drive you crazy. It's very hard to make a decision. Sometimes making a decision could be so stressful because you don't want to make the wrong decision. And that's why it's so important to connect with your intuition. And once you do, you start to feel, and I'm not saying you're going to know everything. It's not going to give you every single answer you ever need, but it's going to really help you feel and get a sense of what is right for you. The same way as when you first start driving. When you first start driving, you start to pay attention to every little detail. And then after a while, you start to get a feel for the road. And then you can relax and you can enjoy the scenery. You can actually get to a point where you're enjoying the scenery. But before doing that, you're not focused on anything else but driving. You're focused on your hand on the wheel. You're focused on exactly what you're doing. And it's draining. It's exhausting. But when you can actually allow that once your mind starts to grasp, okay, this is what it is, and I get a feel for it, you start to have a feel for it, it becomes automatic. And then you can actually enjoy the ride. And I know that sounds kind of crazy and counterintuitive, but it is true. And allowing yourself to really feel and get guided by it gives you, or at least alleviates the extra pressure that you feel generally in this. And the intuition also, if you really, really, really get deep in it, will also connect you with how you're feeling sexually during the time that you're ovulating. And that's the time that is best to connect, or a little before that. It'll connect you with that. It'll also connect you with a primal aspect of you wanting to connect with your partner to make babies. I mean, it really, on so many levels, awakens your primal self to allow you to feel really aligned with your soul and your body. And ultimately, that is our happy place. I think that's really what we were designed to do. That's kind of like our birthright, but it really is the modern world. Modern world, we've been conditioned a lot of times to not listen to that and not to live in the Tao. The Tao meaning the way. And that is effortless effort where everything falls into place. And that's literally that space of peace, or the eye of the storm, that is really the core of who we are, the core of our souls. And it really connects us to what we're meant to be, to align us with our life. And that is our compass. It's our North Star. And that's what your intuition is. So I think it's just so important, especially on the fertility journey, to connect with that North Star. And that's why I wanted to make an episode just on that, because I speak to my patients about this every single day, and I see amazingly transformations with them as I'm working with them, as they start to listen to their intuition. Because sometimes you just need one person to say, hey, you could listen to your intuition and it's okay. And when you get that permission, it feels like, okay, that encouragement from somebody from the side, it actually allows you to say, hey, maybe I could do this. And I see amazing transformation and amazing growth and empowerment. I will say that once they feel, okay, I could really trust myself, it changes the whole game. It really, really does. And amazingly, it also aligns and puts the stars to align, because then it's like they're opened up to this other portal and allows them possibilities and beautiful things that happen, where they get calls about exactly what they were wanting. Like they're looking for maybe an endocrinologist, and then a friend just calls and says, oh my God, I found the best endocrinologist or dietitian or whatever it is. They'll find these amazing coincidences, which I don't believe are coincidences. I think they come up, these beautiful spontaneous occurrences that are aligned. They happen from the universe. I think it's just markers to show us that we're in alignment. And when those things happen, you think about a person they call, or things happen that you're just amazed about. It's exactly what your soul wanted at that moment. And all of a sudden you get gifted with that. When those things happen, I think it's the universe just giving you confirmation that you're in alignment and you're in harmony with what is best for your soul. One of the other ways to do this is to journal. When you journal, you really connect with what you're feeling on an internal level. And when you're doing that, that brings you to the awareness. The journal is great for awareness. It also is great for allowing, because sometimes people have automatic thoughts or inspired thought that comes through their writing. And that's almost like listening and writing at the same time. And you can also do affirmations for trusting, saying, I trust my inner guidance. I trust my inner wisdom. And you can invoke that with your own intention. So if you guys have any interesting stories about listening to your intuition, I would love to hear from you. Email me at info@thewholesomelotus.com. I would love to hear your stories. I always love hearing from my listeners, and I hope that this inspired you to really take your own power and to listen to your intuition, your gut, because it really is a real thing. Thank you so much for listening in today, and have a beautiful day. So that concludes today's episode. You can find all of the links mentioned on the episode notes. If you're enjoying these episodes, please take a moment to share and leave a review. Reviews mean everything to podcasters, and I really enjoy hearing from my listeners. You can also find me on my website at www.thewholesomelotus.com or email me at info@thewholesomelotus.com. I love hearing from my listeners. If you're interested and want updates as well as a free ebook on my top 10 fertility boosting habits, you can visit my fertility page on www.thewholesomelotus.com. I thank you so much for listening in and hope that you have a beautiful day.